Welcome to Triggers and Spiritual Medicine, a community built and grassroots based podcast that addresses the root issues and triggers at the intersection of our health, systems of oppression, and cultural conditioning. Together, we explore what is truly ailing us as human beings in today's world. This space is non commercialized. No advertising dollars are involved because our mission is clear to dive deep into the heart of our collective struggles and discover the spiritual medicine that can heal us personally, within our families, our communities, and the collective. Each month, we sit down with extraordinary guests who share their wisdom and offer at least 3 actionable steps to help you on your journey. This is more than just a conversation. This is a call to action, a chance to tap into the healing tools we all need to move forward as a species. We explore root systems and causes through stories of healing and recovery from addiction, cancer, chronic illness, domestic abuse, and more. We learn from wisdom keepers, medicine people, and lineage holders of sacred traditions, unraveling the mysteries that have survived for millennia and examining why, in Western societies, we're sicker than ever before. You'll hear stories from people who have used spiritual medicine in their healing journey, whether through meditation, Reiki, expressive arts, yoga, plants, or by unpacking religious indoctrination, persecution, or decolonizing mental constructs. If you believe in this mission, please subscribe and support our podcast by commenting, engaging, and sharing it with others. You can also become a Patreon member to help support our domestic violence community and sacred activist work. Membership levels start for free, or you can join for just $5 a month to gain insider information, exclusive content, and more. Whether you are a healer, a seeker, or simply curious, you're in the right place. So let's journey together. So this is Laura again from Healing with Spirit, and we have an amazing guest today, my dear friend, Brighid Murphy. This is going to be a conversation you are probably going to want to replay over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I'll tell you why. Brighid is a healing catalyst, a therapeutic guide, and a wellness practitioner. She helps spiritually conscious people awaken their inner wisdom and transform their daily lives through self-healing practices and spiritual growth. Brighid lives in the woods in Western Massachusetts, where she offers highly personalized one-on-one wellness retreats. She spends time with her puppy and her partner and quietly empowers people to reclaim sovereignty over their bodies, minds, and souls. Today's topic is going to be really centered around pain, power, and politics. So stay tuned. Brighid, I am so happy you are here. Thank you for joining. Can you just share what is on your mind today? What's weighing on you?
Oh, just one thing? What is weighing on my mind is that we as humans can be so much more in charge of our own bodies and our own healing than we currently are. And that has been, it's always been on my mind. And right now it is so important and essential that everyone gets it and takes some action around it. That's what's on my mind. Good morning.
Yeah, it brings me to one of the things, I just shared a video on TikTok, or resharing, I should say, a video I did. Something as simple as I teach my clients, for instance, is the importance of when you're triggered with something. How do you turn triggers into a power, right? And it's I always say stop, pause, and it's simple, like breathe, right? And it's a whole methodology that I go into teaching people at this, and I go, but you have to do that to know what the action step is. You have to create the space so you know what the action step is. Is the action step is this is too much for me, I need to leave the room and go outside? Is the action step that my body's so exhausted I need to go take a nap? Is it that the action step is, boy, I really need to get my shit together and I need to start like kind of cleaning house, so to speak, both inside and around me? Like, what's the action step, right? And a lot of times we get reactionary and then we regret the action step because you miss it's like that inner GPS going beep beep beep, turn right, turn left, and the GPS is going beep beep beep, turn left, and you go, yeah, but I want to turn right, and then you go, oh shoot, I went down the wrong street, right? We've all done it.
The
To the bad.
creating the space
Yeah.
so that you know what to do next. We are currently in this collective energy where there's a squeezing going on, right? Where there's a squeezing going on, and it's coming from the outer world, it's coming from the political climate, and we're feeling it personally. So anytime we can do that, Laura, pause and open up space, we give our nervous systems a break and we also can receive the next step. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. I think it's like trying to get people to understand like how to show up for themselves, to like we have become, there's so much, again, like we're like in a 9 year, right? So this is like a complete shedding, it's a tearing down. And as I say, it's like it's a shit or get off the pot year, because it means all those things you've been self-medicating or shoving underneath the carpet or shoving into that closet, the closet door doesn't want to shut anymore. So
Mm.
eventually you have to clean out your closets. Right? That means in here. And all of us, and I think, at least for me, I notice, like, for me, that gives me strength to move through the times is recognizing that anything I choose to clean up here doesn't all just benefit myself. It benefits everybody else who's in that ripple, that benefits from the ripples of being in there, but it also benefits the generations before me and the generations that come after me. That includes my children and my grandchildren. And I think we underestimate the power of taking back our power from that perspective, especially in the health, right? And I do see a collapsing of our healthcare system. We have a culture of burnout to begin with, but the pandemic, I think, really put doctors and nurses and the medical community, those that really are on the front lines, at a really fast track to burnout. I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who basically quit her job as a PA, because of burnout. And she does not foresee herself going back in because she just says it's just become all about, there's no compassion. It's like it's become about money, not about people. And I think, we know the way to resist. We know the ways of resistance. And that is really, it comes down to personal responsibility, personal accountability. But we can't be working 60 to 90 hours a week, and not have time to take care of ourselves. That is all by design. And when we can reclaim our health, our life, community, especially as white folk. I had this conversation this weekend about this, about how white folk don't even know how to be in community, and it's intentional. It's
Yes.
intentional. What are you seeing as far as that goes in regards to health? What do you believe, for instance, that some people aren't meant to heal? Like,
Well,
do you, like,
yeah,
and what does that mean, really? Anyway, right?
there's so much. I feel like we need to be aware that we may not have access to the same resources that we've had access to. And that goes everywhere from food to healthcare. And I know there's a lot of prepping going on for a lot of folks. What if there's a big crisis? What if the grid cuts out? I get that. And also, there should be prepping going on for how do we take care of our physical bodies if we don't have access to healthcare in the way that we have. And we see and have seen that the mainstream medical healthcare system is kind of falling in on itself because it can't sustain. Um, it can't sustain. So we've seen that happening over the last 10 years, probably longer. And now we're going to see that even more. And if we add on to that all of these changes happening within the government that are kind of haphazard and taking resources from people, it tells us, it points us in the direction of needing to be empowered with our physical and our mental health. So I start with that, and it can be really, really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. I could go down that track, and I can also talk about people and healing and wanting to heal. Where do you want to go?
Well, there's a few things that I know from me that have been popping up. For me, there's the rise in the spiritual communities of folks with good intentions that lack training and depth in their work. And when folks are looking and seeking to reclaim some of the things you're talking about, they're not understanding when they go to some of these, what ends up happening, this is something I've witnessed, especially since the pandemic, is a new type of addiction. And that's like the addiction to the dopamine high of the spiritual community that is stimulation versus transformation. And I think there needs to be a separation of when we're taking back our health, we're not going to get it through stimulation. We're going to get it through transformation and going to the next level thing, the next new age thing, the next this, the next hit is not going to get us there. What is going to get us there is really kind of sitting, taking stock of what's real and not be afraid to go into the places that you've been avoiding,
Yeah.
right? At least for me, that's usually, I always just go, let's just go for the deep stuff.
Well,
And
and
the thing is not everybody's ready for that.
well, going back to what you said in the beginning, creating space, slowing down, and and moving more internally, which is becoming more and more of a challenge, especially with the with technology and how we're used to getting everything fast. People are used to ordering things and having them arrive fast. We're used to getting information quick. Our attention for watching videos probably went from 3 minutes to 30 seconds now, right? We want everything fast. And we actually can get answers pretty fast, but there needs to be a slowing down that happens and a going within. And the good news is that because everything has sped up in the way that it has, when we go in, we can access information faster than we could 20 years ago, and we still have to turn it off, shut it down for a minute, and take the time to take that pause and go within.
Yeah, I think there's so much that's there with that because when I look at that, sometimes people are afraid to go within because that in itself is a trigger. And then it creates all these things where they feel like they're reliving things that they thought they have dealt with. And what I've learned is each layer of the onion we peel back, you actually become more empowered. And I always say A trigger shouldn't be your enemy. A trigger should be your friend.
Mhm.
Turn the trigger into a friend. Befriend the trigger because it's actually showing you where you want to be. It's actually showing you where the gold is, right? And
Yeah.
where the power resides. It's like I always have this image of like, why is it like in Eastern Europe, for instance, we look at the dragon and we go, we gotta slay the dragon, we gotta slice the dragon, we gotta defeat the dragon. The dragon's our enemy, right? And in all like the Asian countries, dragons are seen as a god, right? And they're worshipped and they're revered and they're understood. And it even goes because like snakes are very relevant to like dragon energy too. They're in the same sort of sphere. And it's like I keep thinking of like, why is it that St. Patrick wants to drive out the snakes? They go, the snakes are very synonymous of what female power, for instance. So it's like everything we are afraid that resides, and I don't know, it's like there's so many tentacles here because I just look at emotions. What I see is that we label emotions, but we really don't know what they feel. We've gotten disconnected with the feeling. We look at the trigger, we say, oh, that's what I'm feeling. And then we go right up here.
Mhm.
And then, but we're not bringing it here. We're not bringing it center into the body. And to me, it's like, yeah, like, why do we go down into the belly of the cave, into the darkness, where everything grows, by the way, folks? Everything grows in the darkness. Nothing grows in the light. let's just let's just say that, right? No flowers, no food, no babies, no animals.
It all
Nothing
starts in the dark.
grows in the darkness. So when we go into that cave to confront that dragon who's on there, instead of confronting it, how about we just say, hi, how are you? And then when you befriend it, now you have access to the very gifts that you've also been suppressing, that power. It's like the billionaires have orchestrated a way to turn our power over as a means of control. In the domestic violence wheel, we see it as the power control wheel. And when you start looking at the power control wheel from a socioeconomic standpoint, it's really telling. And
Well,
it's like, how do we break free from those systems?
we decide, we decide to stop giving our power and our energy to the system, to the shopping system, to the medical system, to the to all of the systems. And the thing is that we we can bring our power back little at a time. And there has to be a moment where we say, I have given my power to this. I've given my power to this system, and I want to bring it back now. As soon as we say, I'm bringing my power back, it starts to come back because it's yours. We give it away, but it doesn't, it responds. We give our energy and our power away. We've closed our eyes to a lot of truth. And the good news is that we can open our eyes at any time, bring it back. Your power will come back to you when you call it back because it belongs to you. So decide, okay, where am I plugging my energy in? Where am I plugging my money in? Where am I plugging my eyes in? What am I watching? Because everywhere you look, everywhere you breathe, everywhere you give your money, you are giving your power. And so, where are you putting it and bring it back? And when it comes to healing ourselves, bringing our energy back and pulling it away from somebody else has the answer and into my body has the wisdom inside of it. And yes, I may need a help from time to time. And my body was born as a healing machine. And if we look at that perspective, then what's possible here? What can we do? If my body knows how to heal itself, what's possible here? How can I listen to what my body has to say to tell me how to heal? That's a lot of what you and I do with people is
Right,
help them to tune in to the energy of their own body, their own wisdom, their own guidance. Yeah, it's not all just fluff, you know?
right.
It's real. There's some real wisdom in here.
Well, I remember having a conversation with my dad once, who was an osteopathic physician and who blended holistic therapies with traditional healthcare. And he said to me once, and it always stuck with me, you don't know how many times you have had cancer and never knew it, because your body has these things called T cells and B cells that naturally just got rid of it before it actually materialized into cancer.
Yes.
And so that really stuck with me, because that really shows when the body is aligned and the body is given the tools or the space to heal itself. It already knows how to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, how does a bird know how to go at the end of the stick and be like, okay, it's time to fly. It just does, right? So there's these things that are innate in us that we have mastered in our DNA for millennia, like thousands of years, that we have evolved to grow, that are very ingrained in the way of being, in who we are, that we don't think about. Which brings me to the next topic of, to those that might be listening, that are saying, might be saying, but I've got chronic illness, I got autoimmune disease, I'm sick, right? Like, what's the most important thing someone can do right now when they are sick and can't even get like an accurate diagnosis? I know so many people that are like, are either misdiagnosed, or because the doctors are like, you're too complicated, I don't have time for you, get out of my office. And I know some of you can relate to this, right? Because that's a huge, huge problem. I know what I tell my clients, but I'm curious, like, what do you tell somebody?
Yes. I First I want to say that folks who have trouble getting a diagnosis and have mystery pain are my favorite clients.
Yeah, I
Yes.
love it.
Um,
Yep.
so what I say is, I'm sorry that you are in pain. I don't want anybody to be in pain. That's the first thing, that I say. And let's find out a little bit more about what's going on. Let's get quiet and let's listen. And let's listen not just with our ears, but let's listen with our heart. Let's listen with our breath. As soon as you slow the breath down, it allows you to listen with your body.
Mhm.
You start to oxygenate your cells, and then your cells can release information that can come into your consciousness. So, creating space. Sometimes I feel like a broken record. I say this all the time. Creating space every day where you're not attached to screens and you're just with your breath, or if you have ADD or have trouble just being with your breath, find something repetitive to do like knitting or shaking some rattles. 5 minutes a day over a period of time will open up the door to the information that you need. So just simply stop and spend 5 minutes a day to yourself. That is a guarantee. If somebody does that for 30 days in a row, just 5 minutes, we're going to have a conversation, a different conversation than we did at the start. So,
Yeah, I always say we have this for a reason. Or like it's fascinating, because I even, listening to the Irish ways of energy centers, the three cauldrons. And, I said we have this for a reason, because up here we get stuck. We've been conditioned to like, oh, but I'm feeling this, or they say, oh, I feel anxious. Well, what does that feel like? And then they don't know how to know what that feels like.
yeah.
But when we go here with the base cauldron, like, that's where your power resides. Then we
Mhm.
connect that with the heart, and then we connect it with the mind and the spirit. And I go, when you understand that when all three are aligned, things just go pop. They open. The key is how do we get into, when things are constantly moving and changing? How do we get it to be like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. And then it
Yes.
moves again, right? And you go, there it is, right? So it's
Yes.
constantly, but it's bearing, as I always say, it's bearing witness to your own experience, which is tough to do. And it takes a lot of, it's mastering a lot of the little things, right? And not
Hmm.
a lot of the big things. Like I think we are a culture. We see it in the spiritual community. I got to get the next certificate. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. And I know, like when I get people that come to me, I hear a lot of, well, I do, I do, I do, I do, I do, I do, I do.
Hmm.
And I'm like, how much are you being?
How much are you being? Exactly. Some folks that I work with a lot of folks who have a lot of experience with different healing modalities. And I work with a lot of therapists. I work with physicians who are used to doing all the things, trying all the things, and they're stuck. And so often the first thing I say is stop everything you're doing. You're trying too hard. You're doing too
Yes.
much. We're just going to be. And when I do, I do one-on-one retreats and I have folks in my space and we spend a lot of time in the quiet. And in those moments, there are profound awarenesses that come through into the consciousness, into the heart, and shifts that happen that we didn't have to do anything for. We just had to be present for them.
It's interesting that you say that, like when you offer the retreats, because I do the pilgrimage to Ireland, and we process a lot of our stuff on the sacred lands. And one of the thing I notice is, and I noticed this even too when I was finishing up this book, Secrets to Healing, and I was done even in Colombia during the peak of the pandemic, and really kind of sitting with that concept of Kodadama, and what does that feel like, and what does that really mean, and we have words have energy, but what does that really mean? And how does that sit with? And I think the first hit was coming back to the United States and seeing how much of the collective energy was so heavy. And it's not just of people living, but it's all of, like, we look at in the Boston area, for instance. We are the hub of like trauma in the entire country, between the Boston Revolution, right, to the slaughtering of like the Massachusetts tribe and other indigenous peoples, to the burning times of witches, to freed slaves that were basically tortured and then sent back. Like we can go, like there was never been a calmness since the English came. There was never a calmness here on the soil. And that does impact our nervous system. So it's also being able to discern how much of the stuff you're feeling is even yours, and how much of it is in the collective. Like when we go to Ireland and we're in these sacred places, and I say there's a reason why, like, the English didn't touch them, the Vikings didn't touch some of these sites, the church didn't even touch some of these sites for like 6,000 years. And that's why they're so powerful when you go there and you feel like you can move mountains, right? And you can really get connected. It's really sometimes, and I get for those who might be listening, they might be saying, I'm trying that. I'm trying. I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm trying it, but for some reason I can't get it. And it might be also understanding that it could be because of all the energies that are around you. And all I would say is find a place, whether it's indoors or outdoors, right? That you can repetitively bring in a particular type of energy. Because once you do and you start commanding that, then now it becomes a sanctuary.
Yep.
And now it becomes a vortex. And now it becomes a place where all of a sudden you're getting the very things that you couldn't access before. What would you say to that, Bridget?
So I would say we add my 5 minutes a day into the spot that you create, you just told everybody to create in their home or outdoors somewhere where they can be and create a little insulated vortex of energy and put those two together. Spend 5 minutes a day in a little sanctuary space that you set up for yourself. That way, you're aligning your inner world with what is available to you in the outer world, and the two of them create a PowerPoint in yourself and around yourself. And that starts to open your possibilities for something new to occur. And it also is an act of resistance, It's an act of sovereignty. It's an act of, dare I say, the inner rebel in me, defiance. Taking time for yourself like this is an act of defiance because you are defying the noise, the rhetoric, and the bullshit that is coming at you from all the way, all around you. And that is power. That is power for us to be able to have a practice 5 minutes a day that as soon as we do it, we are in our own energy and we escape the noise. That's power. That's defying what is trying to pull us away from our power, and that's sovereignty. Simple as that.
I actually have one of the things that there's two examples. One for those who live, especially like in the city, and things are just so
Mhm.
right. Um, Maybe it's sitting in your car. Maybe it's sitting in your car as the place that you created to take it because you can cocoon yourself and that is your place. I know for some, that's where I've seen folks spend 5, 10 minutes, maybe even on their lunch break, because that's their way when they're at their job and they go and they sit in their car and they just sink in and then they just pull everything out and they put it on their dashboard. That's okay too. It doesn't have to be like you see a candle here, you see a drum here. It doesn't mean it has to be like that. You work with the means that you have. Um, I know for others, I have another single mom who just is very busy and is also fighting a legal battle with an abuser in family court. And what they do is they have a candle next to their bed. So they use that time. The minute they wake up in the morning, they light it. The minute they go to bed, they light it. And then they spend that quiet time, even if it's 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after. And then they use that as like the sitting on the bed piece as the trigger that they know to do that practice. So it's a matter of creating a habit. Maybe for you it's sitting on the toilet. Like it doesn't have to be like all these. I think the downside with a lot of what we see with like a lot of spiritual influencers is they dramatize and do a lot of cosplay with a lot of these practices we're talking about. I know people who actually use the throne as their sacred time of being alone. Like, it could be that. And really symbolizing, I don't know, think about it, Bridget. It's like you're eliminating, boom, right? You're letting go. How about you practice the breath? And you go, okay, we're dropping off not just the children to play, but we're going to be dropping off a lot of other things to play.
Whatever works. I have clients who do their sessions in the car because that's where they have peace. So,
Yep.
whatever works, it doesn't have to be some big, complicated production. Healing ourselves, learning how to heal ourselves, learning how to listen to what our body and our mind are asking for so that we can heal ourselves can be simple. It does not have to
Yes.
be a big show.
So, what would you say are the top three actionable steps? Somebody who's listening, if you're listening this far, what would be three actionable steps that you would recommend folks to start getting into that place, to reclaim that place of power, that addressing their pain, to addressing how that is access to power, and that by doing that, it is political?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. First thing is spend 5 minutes a day to yourself. Second thing is make a practice of talking to your body like you'd talk to another human. Hey, body, I know you're holding a lot. Thanks for all you're holding. Hey, body, I know you're really tired. Hey, liver, I know you've been really busy. Thank you. Speaking directly to the body. That opens up a dialogue between what is inside and what is here, and it gives you information. And the third thing is learn how to make one natural remedy to help you boost your immune system or fight infection. One natural remedy. If you have no idea what that means, message me and I'll give you 3 ideas of what you can do in an instant. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
I would just say the number one plant that we have, we spend billions of dollars trying to eradicate that probably every, well, it's in Europe, it's in the US, Canada, so it's probably one of the more easable that easily
easily, I
easily
like that.
accessible, easily, there you go. Easily accessible plants would be dandelion. Like everything is edible in dandelion. The stems, the flowers, the roots, befriending the plants and talking to them too, like you would your body, is hugely powerful. That's some of the things that we do in our office too, and yeah, and some clients I know get like a little shy when we start doing the body talk stuff, and I say, okay, well, just picture your heart having like little eyes and a mouth, and
Yeah.
like a little cartoon figure, and see it as like, an entity that actually has a voice, because it does.
It absolutely does. And
Yeah.
and it doesn't, it starts there, but it doesn't end there. We can have conversations with our body. Our body will talk back. It may not talk back in a voice that sounds human, or it might. It'll talk back and it'll speak to us through our senses, through the awareness that comes from somebody else, through a phone call that we get. Our answers will come, and they may not come exactly as we might imagine. So when we talk to our body, we get answers. We can also talk to different parts of ourselves that are struggling, and we can create a shift when we do that. As soon as we communicate with something, we move into a place of reception. We can receive what it has to share. And the parts of us the parts of our body have something to share, and parts of our mind have something to share. And ain't nothing going to be shared if we don't ask any questions.
Yeah, it's funny because I was out on the Massachusetts land the other day, kind of sitting and doing my work, and I call it the walking prayers. And the message I heard, which I feel like I needed to share, is the convenience that we have gotten used to
Mhm.
is no longer convenient. It is actually part of the reason why we are sick. It is part of the reason why we have disharmony. And so this is where we have to be okay with sometimes not being okay, and being okay with, geez, I know I've been procrastinating on this. It's time that I, level up, and understanding that you're also not alone. I think that's the big thing is you're not alone in this, find a community either near you or online, or seek out. I think another tip I would recommend is make sure if you do seek a healer, whether if it's not me or Bridget, and you seek out a healer, make sure like know the questions to ask, and make sure that they've been doing this at the times that we're in right now. I would say this is where you go to the elders. This is where you go to the wise women, to those that have been doing the work for decades, because they've seen this before and they've done this dance before. And it's really important that you go with somebody that can really help you navigate the overnighters, the overnight priestesses and shamans. Their intentions might be well, but I've also seen harm in those communities because they haven't had the depth or the training to know how to help navigate the really the depth that's needed for these times right now. This it doesn't mean that they don't have good medicine to offer. It just means the level of depth that is needed. You really need to go to teachers and healers that have that same level of depth, that can help you unpack, that can help you address and teach you skills like what Bridget and I were talking about on how to really go in and listen And really, I always say the body's going to dictate. Like when I work with people, I say the body's going to dictate how we flow. Because depending on what happens in between and what comes up, that body is going to tell you and me what we do next,
Hmm.
right? Or
Yes.
what we need to address next, right? So I can never go with a script, oh, here's a 6-week program and you're going to have your ancestral lineage healed. Doesn't work that way, folks. It doesn't work that way. It's really important that you understand this is a lifelong journey. But when you do it from this place, it is from a place of power and sovereignty that nobody can touch. It's like that oak tree that is stands, but stands in a place of power in the greatest of storms, you
Mhm.
know, and it knows how to go deep with the roots. And that's what we're talking about. That's the medicine Bridget was just talking about. Is there anything else you would like to share, Madame?
Oh, I think that I really want to emphasize that learning how to care for ourselves and heal ourselves and support our body in healing is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves. Educate that we should all be educating ourselves on how to do that better so that we are not afraid when we are sick. We understand what is happening or have access to guidance from somebody who can lead us in understanding what is happening. Because the resources that have been available or that we thought were available may not be there, and that we do have the resources inside of us to help ourselves heal.
Yeah, because we're here because our ancestors who have gone through genocides and traumas and oppression and famines, we're here because they survived, right? So, and that doesn't mean like, yes, I always say it's facing the hard truths, but don't lean into the fear and go down that rabbit hole because then you're missing the medicine and the action steps of what you actually need to take to move from a place of power and sovereignty. Um,
I think
what's
honoring
the,
the fear is important. I
well,
think
yes,
if we don't
absolutely.
honor it, it can really sidetrack us. Honoring
Oh,
fear
absolutely.
is important. Yeah.
Maybe I needed to rephrase that because it wasn't to not honor the fear. It was to not run like an avalanche of being like, but and then that's all you focus on, right? And instead of being like, okay, here's the fear. I always say the irrational thoughts can be sometimes your best teachers. But you have to be able to create this space to be able to say, okay, well, that was interesting. I had this weird thought. I had this weird fear. What is this really about? Versus, and it's all catastrophizing, right? And I think that's it's different of how we face those fears. It's facing it, accessing it, acknowledging it, but not really going down very unhelpful holes.
Well, then you're having, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, we live in a world that has us trying to get rid of, release, let go, abolish these things that don't work for us. And that approach is not helpful. We want to understand something's role and how it's serving us so that we can integrate it. We don't have to get rid of anything.
No,
Same
I
thing with,
agree with that.
yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I think that's where I maybe have misspoken. It wasn't that we got rid of anything. I always say even our traumas, we don't ever get rid of them, but they become our teachers and we learn how to see them through a different lens and a different perspective where it doesn't consume us into an unhealthy loop,
Yes,
And so I
exactly.
think and then again, when you do that, you're coming from a place of power versus when we take the fears and it goes into that, catastrophizing phase, that's disempowering, right? So I think that's like very fine line of addressing the same thing, but it's like you go one side over here and it goes down this hole, you go down one side over here and it goes down the other side, right? So it's that delicate fine line, right? Between the two. What's the best way for somebody to find you if they wanted to work with you?
Yeah, at BrighidMurphy.com or at Brighid Murphy Healing on IG. My handles are at Brighid Murphy or at Brighid Murphy Healing. So if folks go to the website, there's a form on there that they can send a message and we could talk about healing work. Thank you for asking. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it's always a cherish. We always have these interesting conversations, always very enriching. Um, Thank you for those who are listening, for tuning in to Triggers in Spiritual Medicine. We hope that today's episode provided insights and action steps to support your own personal journey. Remember, healing is a continuous process, and by addressing what triggers us, we create space for deeper transformation. If you'd like to dive deeper into our community and support our sacred activist work, please join us on Patreon, where you'll find more resources and insider content to empower your healing path. Be sure, by the way, to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, because guess what? Remember, this is not advertised, like, help share, like, engage, help boost the algorithms, because we know certain platforms don't want us to get visibility. So make sure you help us boost our algorithms. And since it is community driven podcast, your support truly makes a difference in helping us reach more souls who can benefit this journey. Stay connected, stay mindful, and keep doing that deeper inner work, because together we are building a community that uplifts and heals. So until next time, stay grounded and take care of your soul. Have a good day, everybody.